and welcome to Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter, Drama Actors. I'm Lacey Rose, and I'm joined today by Sam Rockwell, Billy Porter, Richard Madden, Diego Luna, Hugh Grant, and Stephan James. Thank you guys for being here. We'll dive into this. All right, we're gonna start with what I hope is a fun icebreaker. I knew I had made it in Hollywood when... What was that sort of I've arrived moment for you guys? You look like you have one.
I think I do. For me, it would probably be when I found myself in the White House.
Wow.
And, we had a film release called Selma, and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama invited us to the White House for a special screening of the film.
Wow.
And I remember when I got the email, I sent it straight to my junk because I thought it was a fake.
As you do.
Literally, the email said, the White House. And I said,
Please.
There's no way. You want my passport and my social security? Yeah. No way. But yeah, I mean, a week later, I'm in the White House and in this theater with Michelle, and she's like, the popcorn's over there and the restroom's over there, and make yourself at home. And it was kind of one of those moments where you realize that, first of all, it's all downhill from here.
For sure.
Yeah.
But also that, you're pretty fortunate, and you'll probably be around, hopefully you'll be around for a little while. So, that was certainly an encouraging moment for me.
Sure. I like that you found yourself in the White House, is the way you phrased that.
Yeah.
What about the rest of you?
That's pretty cool. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
I'm not gonna top that.
That's
But are there moments? Yeah.
Yeah, I started working when I was really young and did terrible films as a kid that no one got to see, And the first time I did a horrible film here, got screened everywhere. It haunted me, no matter where I was.
What kind of movie? What genre was it?
It was, I had to dance a lot.
Okay.
And the film opened in every country. And I was like, no, that's what Hollywood does to your career,
Yeah.
But you're still here.
Yeah, I survived. Yeah.
What about the rest of you?
I just got here. I've been in this business for 30 years. I just got to Hollywood. They just started paying attention, and I wore a tuxedo Oscar dress. That's when I arrived to the Oscars. I wore a tuxedo dress to the Oscars, and that's when everybody started paying the most attention in my life.
I love that.
I don't feel like I've arrived. I keep waiting to be taken out. Do you know what I mean? Rather than arriving.
Like the hook comes and pulls you right out of town?
That kind of someone's going to call you out and say you shouldn't be here and remove you from the building. And so I think that's I kind of always got that fear of, I don't really feel like I've ever arrived. I don't know if I ever will, but maybe that's just me. Well, that's a depressing note.
No, I know what you mean. That's very, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's little moments where you meet somebody you admire,
And they know you, and
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Like these guys.
Yeah. Do you have one, Hugh? To put you on the spot?
Well, it's so long ago that anyone was nice to me here. I can't hardly remember. It was after I made 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and I came out as a, hitherto unknown crap actor. And suddenly, big studio people were sending me baskets. Those endless baskets.
We have a lot of them.
I spent all day, every day, just undoing baskets. And it was quite fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
And people used to say extraordinary things to me, like, missing you already. What? I've only just met you today. And the level of phoniness was fantastic. I enjoyed all that.
Why is this in the past tense?
Well, I never really spent any time here, to be absolutely honest with you.
Okay.
I've never made a film here. Yes, I did. One tiny film I made here. So I still feel like an outsider. I remember the first time I ever arrived here, pre-4 Weddings, and I came out to see a girlfriend, and I checked into the hotel, and the man behind the counter said, okay, and how are you going to take care of your room? And I said, well, as well as I possibly can. Because that's an American expression. We don't say that in England.
I'm going to clean up. I'll make my bed.
Keep it tidy. Yeah, as tidy as I can. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, at the stages of your careers that you are all currently in, what are the roles you're sort of either already tired of or just tired of being approached for?
I played Romeo for about 10 years in different ways. So and literally played it when I was 21 and when I was 30, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Check that box.
I've checked that box, kind of thing. I think I'm done playing lots of good guys that bad things happen to. I've done lots of that, so I'm kind of interested to do less of Romeo, I think.
I like that. What about the rest of you guys?
You know, I was labeled very early the flamboyant clown. I fought that for decades. And with that said, you know, nobody minds stopping a show. Let's get that straight. Like, it's fun, it's fabulous. Like, yes, you want to be great. You want people to receive you, you know. But I'm finally, in this moment in my life, also being able to play that character as a fully developed human being, and not just the two-dimensional version that is set up to entertain, you know, but the at what cost of that entertainment gets to come in to the story now, and it's really great. Yeah. You know, it's really great to be able to see that happen and to have lived long enough to live it and see it happen on my terms.
Absolutely.
It's fabulous.
What about the rest of you? I mean, are there roles that you're like, ugh, not this again?
Yeah, I could take a break from racists and long break.
Maybe like a forever break?
Yeah, and I played a lot of country, you know, whether you say redneck or just country is probably a better way to put it, you know. And it's funny, I'm a city kid, and they're always trying to throw me on a horse or get a lasso or something, and I'm really not, you know, that's not my thing. Yeah, so.
I love it. What about you guys?
I'm still happy that I don't have to play women's parts anymore. The school I went to was all boys, and I was a pretty boy, and I just played girls for 11 years. Quite well, I have to say. I was very good as Brigitte von Trapp, who's one of the von Trapp daughters, in my white dress with a blue satin sash. But it's nice to be playing men again.
Is there any for you, Diego?
Yeah, after Tu Mamá también, I guess I was for 10 years offered roles of a young kid kissing his best friend. And I remember directors saying, I know this is not the role, but can you bring the lightness of that show to this? And you go like, no, it's very difficult. Yeah. But that tends to happen a lot. Gladly, I love the film. But suddenly the character became more than actually what I was capable as an actor, you know? It was more what the film made feel to audiences, you know? Like suddenly you could relate to your childhood, and they wanted me to be them as kids having fun and doing the stuff they don't do, you know? Yeah. But I think I'm sad I cannot play that guy anymore. You know? Now that I'm a father, that I'm 40, well, about to get to 40, I miss that role a lot. Mm-hmm.
You know, the first thing that popped in my head was probably just period pieces.
Oh,
just
wow. That's interesting.
Staying away from period for a minute.
Well, you were doing, I mean, one after the next, these historical.
Yeah, and you know, playing these historical figures are great. I mean, I played Jesse Owens and John Lewis, and those things are great. And you know, there's a lot of pride that comes with playing those types of people. But at a certain time, you're just like, you know, you get this feeling that people in Hollywood think you only exist in like the 1940s and 50s. You can't do anything contemporary, and so for me, that was one of the biggest. And again, it's the power we have as artists to say no to those things and to try and change and maneuver and craft the kind of career that you see for yourself.
Hugh, you have said every actor in the world prefers playing darker characters. I think you said in Shakespeare's time, I'm sure everyone wanted to play Tybalt, not Romeo. Why is that? Exactly.
Well, really, you should be asking Richard.
Exactly.
No, it's true. No one wants to be the good guy. It's harder. Would everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The interesting question is why? Why, you know, in Paradise Lost, we're more interested in Lucifer than we are in, you know, any of the good characters. And why? And I think it's because we kind of know deep down that people are evil. Sure. And that the sort of niceness is a very thin veneer.
Yeah.
So when you're dark, it strikes a chord. It comes straight down the camera into people's...
Yeah, it's cathartic, right?
Yeah.
You get to be an outlaw. That's cathartic, yeah, I think.
But it just seems... It's got veracity. It's true.
Yeah.
You know, it's about human beings.
I also find, as a person who has just come into the leading man space,
Yep.
who built a career being character actors on the side, everything happens to you as the leading actor. It's inactive. So you're standing around trying to make something interesting, and that's actually not your job.
Right.
You know, all of the interesting people are bouncing their stuff off of you, right? So I find you know, I wrote a play and we were doing a reading. We're getting ready to do it in the fall, and there's a character who, reading after reading after reading, he's like the funny one. And I'm going, you know, and I can't, and the jokes aren't landing, and I'm going, you just have to, and I can't fix it,
right.
you know, because I'm the guy who's now, it was really interesting. It's like you have to, how do you make the leading man character, the leading woman, whatever, how do you make that character's journey active?
Yep.
That's the challenge, I think, and why everybody says, you know,
A little harder.
it's harder, you know, because everybody else's action is really clear. The side characters' actions are clear because they function individually
Yep.
in the journey. So anyway, I think that's...
Yeah.
I think, Hugh, you would also say that you permanently have an inferiority complex because you are, and I'm putting this in quotes, so you know that you said this and not me, just the guy from romantic comedies. Is that real? I mean, really you feel that way?
Well, yes, I did. A bit less now, because I got too old and ugly and fat to do them anymore. And so now I've done other things, and I feel I've got marginally less self-hatred than I had before.
But you for a long time, and that was the sort of box you were in.
Yes, it was.
Did it feel like a box?
Yes. But I mean, not one you can complain about. I was being paid tons of money. I was very lucky. And most of those romantic comedies, I can look squarely in the face. One or two are shockers, but on the whole, I can look them in the face. And people like them, and I'm a big believer in that our job is to entertain. I see us as craftsmen, along with the guy who does the lights and the guy who edits and the guy who pushes the dolly, to make an entertainment, to entertain people. Because if it's not that, I think it's a bit masturbatory.
Yeah.
Can I say masturbatory?
You can. You did, and you can.
Say it again, masturbatory.
Yes. Billy, before Pose, you were being sort of passed over for part after part in Hollywood. Now, obviously, you had a thriving theater career before this. How close were you to actually throwing in the towel, and what made you keep going?
You know, being black and gay and out, which is an answer to that authenticity situation that we talk about so often. It's easy to be who you are when what you are is what's popular.
Yeah.
So the choice to choose my sanity over my fame or possible fame or whatever that means came with a lot of unemployment. And, you know, it's a double layer. The layer of actually being a person of color in this industry, and then the other layer of being a queen.
Yep.
Nobody can see you as anything else. If flamboyantly ... wasn't in the description of the character, no one would see me ever for anything. Which wouldn't be so enraging if it went the other direction, but it doesn't.
Right.
Because straight men playing gay everybody wants to give him an award. Thank you for gracing us with your straight presence.
Yeah.
So that gets tiresome.
Yep.
So here I sit, I can't get the gay parts, I can't get the straight parts, I can't get nothing.
Yep.
If there wasn't, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So it's like, you know, theater was a little bit kinder after decades of unemployment as well. But the dismissal, the dismissive energy of, you know, I'd go in or I'd put myself on tape, y'all said be flamboyant, and then not a callback, not a nothing, he's too flamboyant. It's like, I'm gonna kill somebody. Like, it was so, the last one, the last pilot season I went through, it was that over and over and over and over again. It was a couple years ago, 3 years ago, and I literally was on my way back from directing Top Dog Underdog at the Huntington Theater, directing it. So I have stuff going on. Like,
Right.
you know, I'm writing, I'm directing, forget it. Like, I don't have to do this anymore, you know? And my sister calls me on the phone and she catches me right after one of those like dismissive, you're too flamboyant calls. And I just went in, I was just crying. I had to pull the car over to the side of the road. I was like, I can't. Like, your body doesn't know that it's not real. The emotions, your body still goes through the, you know, it's like, I can't keep putting myself into this position where I'm always begging. It's really, really awful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll do it. I'll just do it what I'm doing. Like, I love this other side. Like, all of the disappointment led me to this other thing, you know, where I'm developing my own work and I'm writing and I'm directing, I'm creating. It feeds me so much. And I get to be the storyteller that fills the slot that I'm not seeing, you know, gets to sort of try to be a solution to the problem, you know, so why do I care, right? The next day, ring. Brian Murphy wants to see you for a show called Pose. It's set in the LGBTQ Paris is Burning Paul culture. And I literally was like, okay, Lord, or the universe, or whatever. Like, it just was like, you got to be kidding me, you know, because it's not anything. As a person who came to the industry in the 80s, I was in drama school in the 80s. I came to New York in 1990.
You in theater for the New City ever?
No.
Okay.
You got right up onto the brink of, I'm done with this.
Well, yeah, but I just never dreamed that the story that I would get to tell, the one that I lived through, would be, I lived through that.
Yeah.
You know, I lived through this. It's so important to me. It's so powerful, you know, when we actually get to the stories of people, real people.
You're HIV positive. I'm sorry.
This is the moment that I dreaded most. Dodged it for years. And now the son of a bitch has finally caught up with me. We have the power as artists to change the molecular structure of human beings. That's what it did for me. It saved my life. I'm sure everybody at this table. You know, it's like, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the arts. So the fact that I get to participate in that kind of art takes my breath away.
What were the sort of most challenging sort of points in your careers, and how did you turn it around? Or decide, I'm just gonna keep going, and obviously it did turn around because here you all are. Was there a low period, a dark period where you had to climb out?
I think it's that being picky when you're broke, because there's that turning down a job when you've not got another job lined up in the hope that something good's going to happen. And I did a spell, I did 11 months where I was broke and had nothing, and was turning down theatre gigs, small theatre gigs, because I wanted to try and be doing some camera acting. I wanted to get into that. I wanted to get better at that. And getting to that point of being like, the offers stop coming after you turn them down for a while. And then you go, right, I've now ruined that bit of my career. I can't go back there, and I'm not getting the camera stuff, and maybe I've just screwed it up completely, and I'm lost now. I've shot myself in the foot by being too ambitious to learn more and to move forwards with things. And then I did get Game of Thrones, and that helped change things a bit.
That'll do it. We'll show.
But that was an advance from my agent to stay in London for the next 2 months until I started shooting that. So, I mean, I've not. I think I've been very, very, very lucky in terms of working in low points. I think we all kind of have them and question what we're doing, but I feel very lucky to have not had it as low as a lot of other actors, and I'm grateful for that. I'm aware of it.
Either of you two who have had these and certainly in Hugh's case, a very long career.
Yeah, but with big lulls. The difference was when I was unemployed, I took everything. The worse it was, the quicker I took it. And, I have a really remarkable...
Knowing it was...
Yes, and in fact, quite enjoyed it. You'd think, oh, well, this is nonsense, this film. You know, it's being made in Spain with English actors, with a director who doesn't speak English, and German money. It's never going to see the light of day, so you just go and have a nice time for 3 months and flirt with the actress playing Claire Claremont. Or, you know. I think have you ever done those? I used to call them Euro puddings.
In Isle of Man or something?
Yeah, it was all a terrible mixture.
Yeah.
I remember the director literally spoke no English, so they got a local guy to translate from the Englishman from the local university. And he'd never been on a film set before, and he didn't understand tact. So he used to come up to the actors after a take and say, the director's name was Gonzalo, he'd say, yes, Gonzalo says, be less wooden. And it was really a very difficult note to take.
We've all had that one.
Be less wooden.
Yeah.
That's good.
Stephan, I know one of the things you said that drew you to Homecoming was that there was this sort of rare opportunity to play a colorless character.
Yeah.
Curious, in what way did that differ from the sort of previous offers that you were getting, and why was that so refreshing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just this idea that, you know, oftentimes when you know, you get these breakdowns for these characters, sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow when you know, you see an African American is just explained in one sort of a way.
Which is what? What's the way it...
Well, I mean, you know, I think we've historically, you know, been written, African Americans have been written, for one, very one-dimensional. You know, perhaps they live one certain type of life. You know, maybe they're not educated. Maybe they are, you know, some sort of criminal, perhaps.
Just say it.
Just say it.
Just say it.
You know what I'm saying?
Drugs and thugs.
All that.
Drugs and thugs.
All that. And for me, it's like I take it, it's a responsibility that we have as artists, you know, to be responsible for the work that we're putting out into the world. Yeah. And for me, it just meant a lot that, you know, I had this character, Homecoming, that didn't say African-American on the breakdown.
Right.
I mean, it could have very well said Caucasian. Yeah. I'm acting opposite this little actress, Julia Roberts, you know, who I've grown up my whole life watching. And then it was just sort of this thing that felt like, you know, anybody could have had this role, and here it is, it's mine. There's this desk in my room. It's wooden, and it's got these sharp corners. And when I first got here, I don't know why, I just imagined myself sitting down in a chair and leaning all the way back and like slamming my forehead into the corner of the table. Or just like jamming it in right here. But, I mean, that was an extreme. It doesn't always happen like that. The power that we have with that is such an incredible sort of a feeling. You know, it makes you kind of feel invincible, you know, that people are seeing you in a different sort of a light. And for me, you know, while I don't think that it mattered so much that Walter was Black, you know, for the story, it matters in life that he is, you know? It matters for the kids watching it, for the soldiers
for the adults
watching it, for the adults
who
watching it.
didn't have that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that was so powerful to me watching it. You know, coming up in another era where that was all we had.
Yeah.
If you didn't play thugs or drug dealers, you didn't work at a certain age. And so to see this crack open like that,
Yeah.
to see this man, this beautiful man, be able to step into a space where his ethnicity is not even,
Irrelevant.
it's irrelevant. It really blessed my soul, for real.
It's a special thing. It is.
For real.
I want to talk about the sort of the weight of some of these projects. I know you have talked about at the end of shooting Bodyguard that there was moments where you just said, I don't know that I can keep doing this. Now, I don't know how real that was, but can you talk about sort of being in what is a really sort of challenging, sometimes unhappy place with a character and not necessarily being able to leave that on set?
Yeah, I think I'm just, you know, the nature of shooting television as well is that it's, you know, it's 60 weeks for most of that shoot, and that's 5 months and a bit, and it's, you know, the show was not a comedy. It's pretty anxiety ridden, and you're getting out of the car and you're like, I got 8 hours until I'm back at work the next day. So it takes more to drop what you're carrying and pick it back up the next day than just to kind of keep it on pause until the next morning. And yeah, at the end of Bodyguard, I was like, I need to stop. I need to stop doing this for a while, because it weighed very heavy on me. I was very isolated during it, and you spend more time in someone else's clothes, saying someone else's words, thinking someone else's thoughts, that you do lose a bit of yourself. And I'm not a method actor in any way, but you get a huge hangover from this. And at the end of that, I felt very isolated and broken, much like the character was, and physically and mentally just exhausted. And at the end, I was just trying to survive getting through the last bit of filming. So I think it really takes it out of you sometimes. And I know we're not curing cancer or doing things like that, but you're giving everything you've got to try and do this. And especially when you're leading something, you're doing a lot more than just the acting. That's kind of ends up being 40% of what we do. There's everything else. There's some, you have to hold yourself up, because if you're the one that's on set the longest, you're there before and after everyone else. And if you keep yourself at level, then no one else has a right to be complaining or be worse. So you kind of take that brunt on your shoulders, and that takes it out of you personally.
Sure. Can you talk a little bit about the preparation process? I mean, I know you had consultants as part of this project, but one of the things you have said is that people don't necessarily want to talk about the sort of PTSD and what that looks like and how that weighs on you. So how do you then prepare to take that on as an actor?
I kind of did a lot of, I spoke to a few soldiers, which is tough because they really don't want to talk about it. People don't want to discuss this at all. And I looked at a lot of what I'd seen in film and television, and then I tried to work out where it was going to be honest within this character.
Listen, the specialist counter-terrorism unit already know about a potential incident on this train. So what I'd like to do is just tell them that you're willing to talk. Does that sound okay to you? Just talk, is that a start? There's a second bomber, but we're talking.
It's something that people live with every day. It can be a really just trickling level of anxiety you constantly live with, or paranoia, or panic attacks, or kind of lots of things that lots of other people suffer with. I think it was tapping into those elements and trying to humanize it within someone who is in complete denial about it. So I just tried to find his honesty, and luckily I had writing and a brilliant writer that helped bring out and help me understand this man, I suppose.
Yeah. Diego, before you signed on, I know there was a location scout on the series who was killed, and you have subsequently said that because of that devastation, it became that much more important to you to do the series. A, why, and B, what were you hoping to sort of illustrate with this show?
It's, well, first of all, because I live in Mexico, and the struggle is happening, you know. It's violent times for my country. And it was interesting to revisit my childhood and the Mexico of the 80s from this perspective, because obviously my father was trying to hide this Mexico from me. But then everything starts to make sense, And the story has been told in a way that is wrong, very convenient for many criminals that are not in jail, that are actually running the country, Tons of politicians that have been making a lot of money with this business. And the show starts in the first episode saying that since the 80s, since this started, there's been more than 500,000 people killed in Mexico, So the idea of making sure audiences around the world think about that when they're gonna have a line of cocaine made sense, suddenly. And it's quite complicated also, because yes, we happen to have the longest border between the first world and the third world. We happen to be the neighbor of the biggest consumer of drugs. And it's quite unfair, to be honest, you know? And the story hasn't been told that way, The drug dealers are always the bad guys and there's good guys chasing them. And it's more in the gray areas, what's really happening. And the involvement of government, police, military, in both sides of the border, it's crucial for this to exist, for this gigantic business. So it was a good chance to start the conversation from a different perspective,
Jesús, pásame uno de nuestros kilos. ¿Pesan lo mismo? ¿Cómo?
Dale, primo, cuéntale.
Fíjese que yo eliminé los machos de la cepa, que los machos estaban polinizando a las hembras y pues no tiene semilla. La chingadera que usted tiene aquí está llena de palos y de cocos y esa madre no se puede fumar.
Además ocupa menos espacio. Con los mismos camiones se puede transportar mucho más. Ando buscando socio.
Well, it's one thing to have the conversation here and elsewhere around the world. I'm curious what the conversation has been in Mexico. And were you terrified of what that?
At the beginning, people were very, very, let's say, critical to us. People wanted to say, just don't keep telling the story of Los Narcos, Stop it. There's another Mexico. And I agree, but we're in war right now, and Mexico needs this conversation out. And the violence started to hit the cities and started to get really close, and now everyone has a story, and that needs to stop, And I think television is willing to take the risk, Yes, to entertain, but to plant a seed. That hopefully can bring change.
Are you scared?
But no more than before doing the show, because I live there.
You live there.
I have kids, and I still choose that city to be my city. So I'm going to fight to try to make it a safer place, always, because that's where all my love stories are, And it's exciting to see, because this is international companies. It's Gaumont from France and Netflix from the States, telling a story that we haven't been able to tell in the right way. And it's also a great chance to see Mexicans working and, being in this table means a lot, talking about this and not Star Wars,
Right.
Because I think the great beauty of my job is that I can talk about what worries me, what matters to me. And they're giving me that opportunity here.
Hugh, I'm going to segue to you. I know there was initially some hesitation with doing television that you then got past. Curious, A, what that hesitation was, but B, why this story? Why was this the thing that brought you to the medium?
Oh, well, it wasn't really a hesitation. I mean, it was just pure snobbery. I'd done a film with Stephen Frears, Florence Foster Jenkins. I was having dinner with him, and he said, "What are you doing next?" I said, "I've got a thing." He said, No, I've got to send you something. And he sent me this thing, and it was 3 scripts. I thought, television? I don't do television. And and then I read them, and they were brilliant, and I realise everyone does it now. And I just can't help having a little hankering for the old days of glamour. And
I get it.
Cinemas with lots of people in them. Anyway, it's all gone. And there's no question that the TV's full of fantastic writing and everything, and this was a brilliant project.
Women, what are you, 50-50?
More like 80-20. I mean, 80% for the ladies.
Yeah. Yes, I call myself 80%, but 80% gay.
Gosh, I'm not sure that word's ever been said within these walls before, and not in that context. My wife insists that gay means happy.
I think she's absolutely right. And I intend to be very happy, very many times in my life.
I didn't know which part he wanted me to play. I said, but great script, but what part? And,
What was the other option that you saw in there that could be you?
well, there was tons of options. I could have been Norman Scott or the Home Secretary or the dog. I didn't understand. But Frears is very good at seeing things in me that I certainly never saw. And he said, no, Jeremy Thorpe. And so I had to say yes. And then spent a nice year panicking about it.
What was that panic?
Well, I always have a panic. I don't know. I don't, everyone else does, but a fear of failure. And particularly if there's a long delay. It got delayed, that project. And so I spent a year researching this character. Maybe that helped, but maybe it made me better. I don't know. It was a lot of. I took a very deep bath in that character, and I met all the people who'd ever known him, and I read every book, and I watched him on YouTube. It was a dangerous moment when I was watching him on YouTube and realised I could do quite a good imitation of him. Because I kind of do imitations. And I thought, is that enough? I thought, no, shit, Ben Wishaw's in it. He'll be doing proper acting. So then I went into his inner life a bit more.
Talk to me about watching it with your 89-year-old father.
Yes, well,
Particularly,
ex-military father I have dinner with on Sunday nights. And to my horror, I went round when the show was just coming out on the BBC, and he said, now, wait a minute, isn't your film on television tonight? And I said, well, yes, Dad. And he said, well, let's watch it. And I said, no, it's not up your alley, Dad. You wouldn't like it, really. And he said, no, nonsense. I've got a television upstairs. If you show me how to work it, we'll watch it together. So I then had to sit there with my old dad and, watch this thing where I bring Vaseline into the room and spread it on Ben Whishaw, poor old Paddington. And it was at that point that my father said, well, I think I might go to bed now. But Dad, he's classic. I took him to Paddington 2, to the premiere in Leicester Square in London. And halfway through the film, he turned to me and said, is that a real bear? And I had to say, well, no, Dad, because he's talking.
that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Has anyone else had that experience of watching with a relative or someone where it's just painfully awkward?
Probably, yeah.
I have not.
Any sex scene, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are always
Sex
bad.
scene with mum watching is never.
It's not
never
fun?
great fun.
Yeah.
No.
Do you prepare Mom for that?
I usually do, but sometimes you forget, and then it's tease spat out or cover your eyes, or you're like, well, I've seen it, I was in it.
That was me. That was me. You've had some of those?
Oh yeah, totally had some of those. I don't warn my mom because she suffers from anxiety, so it's kind of one of those things I just let her, just go through while she goes through it.
Moment.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen anyway, so might as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Sam, for you with Fosse Verdon, one of the goals of a project like this was to make Gwen Verdon's story a bigger part of the story, and it not just be Fosse's story. What do you remember from the conversations around that, and how do you then infuse that into your performance?
Oh, we wanted to correct the record on how much Gwen Verdon was a part of that collaboration, and that was a big part of our agenda, I guess you could say. And also, we thought it would be better as a love story, and that would have a natural kind of through line. And Michelle Williams is, a force of nature. She's amazing. And so that was sort of the beginning of that.
It happened to hit at a moment in time in Hollywood where so much of the conversation was about that. I'm curious how much of the movement influenced
I think we had to kind of address it, otherwise we wouldn't be responsible, I think, and also with this guy who was very complicated. We had to bring that into the conversation, and they were kind of like twins, the two of them, They really were codependent in this way. And now we're on to the bridge. Start to undo your skirt and
I always get
and hip straight through
what
to
I aim
Joe. 6,
for.
7, 8.
Your
Squeeze
heart
out
and
of
soul
your skirt.
is what I came for.
Drop. Where'd you learn that?
I was dancing burlesque houses when I was 14.
Huh. 1, 2, 3. I was 13.
Did I read that you consult your therapist
Yeah,
for all your roles?
I do.
I'm curious.
Yes.
What did the discussion entail for this one?
Well, Bob was a complicated dude. So, there was conversation. As Hugh said, a deep bath, I did take a deep bath in this. And it can, mess with your head a little bit. It can mess with you a little bit. But there was a lot of elements to playing Bob. And early on, the dancing, the choreographer brought me together with this young lady who was a dancer. And I fancied myself a hoofer, and I was kind of cocky about it. And then I realized quite quickly that I was not a dancer, not a professional dancer. And I had a lot of work to do.
Is it all you?
It's all me, but Michelle does a lot more dancing than I do.
But there's not a stunt double, if that's what you're asking.
No stunt double.
It was you.
Yeah.
And you had his daughter on set.
Yes, she choreographed a number, actually.
What are those conversations? What do you ask? And are you trying to find the humanity in this guy?
Yeah,
or
absolutely. You have to shake hands with all, Iago or whoever this character is. You got to shake hands with them. I think John Lithgow said that, I think. But there's so many, there's so many elements to it, But again, it's got to be entertaining, I think.
Yep.
You don't want to get too heavy.
No, but that is a balancing act,
Yeah.
I'm guessing, a lot of the time. Billy, for you, when initially you were called for Pose,
Yes.
it's not the role that you ultimately play.
No.
That role was not a part of it. What did you see when you walked in the door? What did you sort of know, and where did the confidence come to say, hey, wait a second, I think there's another role here?
Well, like I touched on before, I came out in the 80s. I lived through AIDS. We went right to the front. I went right to the front lines to fight for our lives and our rights. And, I was in the middle of it before. I was in the middle of ACT UP before I could blink twice. So, the ball culture, I say I was ball culture adjacent because, I was lucky. People discovered that I had talent early, the angels in my life. They sort of pushed me in the right direction. So I moved to New York second semester of senior year from Carnegie Mellon to be in the original cast of Miss Saigon. So I had a job.
Yep.
I was doing HO's Week. I was in the chorus, and I would go out to the clubs, and I would go out to these balls, and so I didn't, I knew it. Paris is Burning came out right when I was becoming an adult, so I had lived it. So I get the call to go in for this project. I had been sort of speaking Ryan Murphy's name into existence for 3 or 4 years because I looked at the market and I was like, this is the only man that's really gonna understand me and like my flamboyance and do something with it. He'll get it. So I was journal and speaking and all that kind of stuff, all that Ooga Booga stuff. So I get the call and there were Ryan Murphy, this is my wheelhouse, and then I get the script and it's for the dance teacher that's outside of the world, who is now played by Charlene Woodard so brilliantly on the show.
Yep.
Okay, so I go in, I prepare the audition, I do the audition, and then this is where the Tony and the Grammy give you confidence and age, because now I'm 45 at this point, 47 at this time, and I did the audition and then I said to Alexa Fogel, okay, so can we talk? Because this is what's happening, right? I've lived it, yes, whatever y'all want me to do, I'll be there for it, but what about one of the mothers of the houses of, or, because there were male and female mothers, and she said, Ryan wants to go transgender, and it's the most brilliant idea ever. I had just directed a play. It was 4 transgender actresses of color in it. And I said, I've worked in that world. The talent is there. There's been no opportunity, though, to sort of cut their teeth. So there's a lot, so many of the actors and actresses are really green. And you're gonna need somebody over there to be daddy, right?
And I'm here.
Daddy's right here. So I got a call a couple of weeks later. Ryan thinks you're right. If you can come in and do an impersonation of the MC from Paris is Burning, he will develop something for you. And I thought, if I can do, it's like the whole world has been doing an impersonation of these people from this movie, not even knowing that they were doing impersonations of these people from this movie. It's like the culture has been, especially coming out of the LGBTQ and sort of as it has translated into mainstream, all of the lingo especially has come from this. So they gave me about 20 pages of declarations and I went in and I did my thing. The thing that was really the greatest part of it for me is that it was like a final callback for a Broadway show, for a Broadway play or a musical. It wasn't a screen test traditionally. That's my wheelhouse. So I'm sitting there, the room is filled with all the people who can give you the gig. And they can ask me anything, I can do it. They can ask me to make changes, I can do it. All of that stuff. And as you can see, I know how to talk, so he just asked me questions. And I'm like, clack, 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 and it's so, it's just, it couldn't be more perfect. And he was just, they were like, yep, we're gonna figure this out. And
here we are.
3 weeks later, the character name was Pray Tell, and we were off to the races.
I love that. Is there a change that you fought for, or a way to take your character that perhaps wasn't already on the page? I mean, are you the guys that raise your hand and say, no,
I'm
you are?
Barbara Streisand in trousers. I'm very, very interfering.
What does that mean? Give us an example, please.
Well, maybe I'm doing her a disservice. Maybe she's very easy.
I don't think
she was
so.
quite interfering and difficult. I've got better, but I mean, my power has dwindled. But when I had a bit of power, I got involved with everything from, heavily involved with the script and the casting and the crew and down to what the poster was going to look like in Italy.
Did people listen or did people fight you?
The Hollywood system, they pretend to listen, they nod.
So have you any interest in producing then, if you want
Well, I did a bit of that. And it's actually horrible producing. I don't know if you've done it, but it's like driving a car from the back seat. You're just tearing your hair out while someone else is driving. Saying, no, slower, or go right.
To me, the directing brought me patience, I used to be I think a pain in the ass in 5 years before I decided to go on directing. But I directed my first film, and I phoned a few directors back saying sorry.
You did?
I'm ready whenever you are. No one called me, but but it does change. Once you live it and you go through that process of actually having to answer every question and sound secure. I think it's when I pull out my acting the best, to convince everyone I knew what I wanted. When you don't, it's impossible. And then you choose to do a project when you're 35 and you end up shooting it when you're 42 and you're telling the same story, but you're not the same person. Directing is good, I think. And also theater gives you what's needed. Yeah, because in theater, it's the actor who has the control and you go from beginning to end every night. And then you realize how difficult it is to do that, and acting can be a little schizophrenic. You come in and out, and you don't actually know what you're doing till you see it years later.
Sure.
Kinky Boots, Harvey Fierstein, the quintessential voice of the LGBT community, one of the first in my lifetime, was bored with telling stories about gay men in dresses. So Lola was not gay. That's fine. There is a tradition, a panto tradition from England, the Some Like It Hot situation, the Tootsie situation, Mrs. Doubtfire, all of that exists. Straight man in a dress exists. It works. Everybody likes that. For me to have chosen authenticity and waited as long as I waited to get to the point where I was with that show, it would be irresponsible for me as an African-American gay man, out gay actor, to get my shot wearing a dress on Broadway and then say the character is straight.
Right.
I'm
Not
sorry,
good.
I can't do it. I can't do it like that. This character can be straight, and when Wayne Brady comes in, which he did, he played it as a straight man, and it works that way too, but not with me.
Not with you.
You know, and it was hard because I had to explain. Well, we've seen it before. We've seen it. We've not seen it before. We've not seen it before. It's different this time.
Yep.
And I fought for that. I really did.
I love that. Stephan, this has been quite a remarkable sort of period for you. You go from Beale Street to Homecoming, or at least that's the way the world sort of received these projects. Curious for you, A, how the opportunities have changed since, and how your making decisions have changed now that presumably the world's your oyster.
I think it gets tougher in a weird sense.
How so?
I don't know. I think that the more eyes that are on you, I think that you're more mindful of just how careful, the choices have to be. And for me, I think that it's a wonderful thing to be able to call up anyone or have anyone call you up and be able to sit down and have lunch with anybody. I think that that's really cool. All of a sudden I'm meeting these directors who I've loved my whole life. And now I get to go to coffee and lunch with them, and they know me, and that's a cool thing. But I think certainly the decisions get tougher. I think that you're constantly thinking about what's going to challenge you next, what's going to be different than what people are expecting, and then not wanting to oversaturate or do too much. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, I think, for me at this point in time, is learning how to navigate this new level, these new horizons. But really, I think it's champagne problems.
Well, yes, but it's all relative. I mean, is that something that I feel like you, Richard, have perhaps gone through too? I mean, all of a sudden your name, I mean, you Google your name and it's with Bond rumors.
Never do that. Never Google your name.
Yeah, but now all of a sudden that is what is attached to your name, and it's Game of Thrones, Bodyguard, and now Bond. So how do you sort of navigate your choices in all of that, and perhaps tune it out if you need to tune it out?
That's what I was just thinking when you were talking was, I think I was never more confident when I had no success, because I had nothing to lose. And then anytime you do something and it goes down well, I have that thing of entering a room feeling like people are like, all right, well, deliver now that we've seen you do this, or you've done that well. And so that's when it actually starts to get worse. It's all in your own head, because actually it should all be confidence boosting, but actually I kind of go in and I feel I have more to live up to, I have more to lose now. And that kind of wears away at you, and you have to kind of check yourself sometimes and remind yourself, like there's a lot of other people that think you're good, and every time someone thinks you're good, in my head I go, oh no, it can't be true, and you really need to kind of, I find I'm having to really check myself on that, because that pressure of trying to live up to and keep your standards at what you've done means it gets harder and harder to fail, and you get more terrified of failing when you've got something to lose. And I think that's just part of it. I'm going to do some good things, I hope, and I'm probably going to do some shit things too, and it's just going to be the journey of it. I'm going to learn all the way through it and try not take each one as this needs to be it, then it needs to be this, then it needs to be this. I think I need to kind of try and relax a bit more on the journey of succeeding and failing, because I think I learn a hell of a lot more when I'm failing, I think.
Are there things that you guys wish you knew about navigating fame and success that you know now?
When I was more in your shoe, where you are now, and after 4 weddings, and the world was my oyster, I should have made interesting decisions and done different stuff. Instead, I repeated myself almost identically about 17 times in a row. That was a bad idea.
You know, I have to say I've had a very interesting trajectory because I've seen my friends become stars 20 years ago. I've seen them navigate that for 20, you know, so I have information at 50 that I'm so glad that I have entering this market now.
Sure.
You know, it has given me a different kind of clarity and confidence in a sense that I've just seen it enough. I've been around enough to like never go online.
In terms of your preparation processes, what are your sort of go-to tricks, the things you sort of need to do to get into a role?
For me, it's usually one garment. Or even the way you wear one garment. For this Jeremy Thorpe thing, he was famous for wearing these hats, and I was standing there at Mans's costume place in London for days and days thinking, what the fuck is wrong here? I'm dressed just like Jeremy Thorpe, I'm wearing the same hat, I can't get it right, I can't see him. And then one of the guys there said, just tilt it back 2 inches. Bingo, there it was. And then everything started to fall into place. I took the hat home, and when I was sort of studying the part to wear it, and I could see him, feel him. It's weird.
I'm very much like that too.
The costume.
You know, it's very much about the silhouette. It's very much about what would this person, you know, that's a lot of it.
Which is not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to work from the inside out.
Well,
I work from the outside
we
in.
work from I work from the inside out too, but that's the moment, that final moment when you actually get those clothes. All that inside interior work is the foundation.
Sure.
Yeah. For this guy, the guy in Narcos, Felix Gallardo, to understand that Mexico he lived in, that I didn't get to live, you know, and when I started researching on that, I was very jealous, and suddenly I really wanted to be him, you know, in order to experience that, like, and I stopped judging the character or thinking about his choices and more about the beauty of life, those moments that I cannot live anymore in Mexico because it's gone, you know.
That's very interesting. Enjoying the character is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very key moment when you think, this is quite fun. I like being him.
Yeah, I gotta be really careful when I say that in Mexico, you know, because everyone goes like, "Oh my God!" But it's true. We are actors, and we have to understand and enjoy the journey and believe in it, you know. And then we can, you know, be objective again and say, "Fuck, this is a horrible world."
Yeah.
But once you're living it, you have to enjoy it.
Sometimes you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and see that character.
Yeah.
I strongly believe in that. When I was playing Jesse Owens, he had this haircut that the hairline was stretched a little further back for some reason. You know, really young men back in the 1930s just had these like way back hairlines. and so I remember saying to myself, I don't really feel like Jesse, I got to do something. And as soon as I cut my hair like that and had to live with myself like that and wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror, it's strange how it started to change the way you talk and change like your facial expressions. And of course you got to wear a baseball hat around all your friends because they don't understand.
Right.
But
I wasn't allowed to have sex for 3 months when I did that. My wife said, "I'm sorry, you're unshaggable."
They run into those problems too.
What is the one thing that your fans would be most surprised to learn about you? Or even shocked to learn about you?
It's a weird question because I don't think many actors think that way. You would go mad if you think about the fans as you know, as a thing.
Fair.
I avoid thinking that way.
I think people would be surprised that I'm actually a situational extrovert. I'm more.
What? What does that mean?
I'm more of an introvert when it comes to. As I've grown older, I've become more of an introvert. You know, that means I get my energy from being silent, or for being alone, or for being with fewer people. You know, when I was younger, I was really an extrovert. Now I know how to do it for work.
Yep.
but I think people are very surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm a little shy too. I think social anxiety, you know.
Super shy. Reserved.
I like really crap pop music.
Like what?
I'm not going to name names, am I? But yeah, kind of really rubbish, cheesy stuff. I just like music that makes me feel happy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, I'm not classy when it comes to it. Give me some really rubbish pop.
See, that's good. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
What
It's
about,
catchy.
Yeah, what about you, Hugh? What would people be surprised to learn?
I just think how nasty I am, really. I think people, you know, they saw all those romantic comedies where I was being the nice guy written by Richard Curtis, who is a very nice guy. He spends half his life saving the starving. You know, people used to think, oh, Hugh must be like that. And it always made him laugh, because I'm vile, really.
Well, I think we've done it, guys. Thank you for being part
All right.
of this conversation. You've done it. The hour flew, right?
Yes, it did.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Haddish.
Hi, I'm Ben Stiller.
Hi, I'm Amelia Clark.
I'm Henry Winkler. And thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable.
Hollywood Reporter Roundtables on YouTube.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
Hi, everyone on YouTube.